Number 48 on WJRD's playlist. Lots of Lost 45s on this thing. Gary Lewis with The Loser. Gary Lewis and the Playboys, The Loser. Gary Lewis on the downward slide by the spring of 1967. But boy, starting in late 64, early 65, with This Diamond Ring, produced by Snuff Garrett. Arranged by Leon Russell. Hal Blaine, the legendary session drummer on the West Coast, playing at Tiffany. The first hit for Gary Lewis and the Playboys went to number 1, and then Just My Style, Sure Gonna Miss Her. Oh, Green Grass, one of their best back in the spring of 66. Save Your Heart For Me. Some of these songs like Save Your Heart For Me considered wimpy, but beautiful AM music. Beautiful AM music. Sounded so good on WJRD and TBC. But Gary Lewis was drafted in late 66. Vietnam was raging. The draft calls were coming up, were zooming upward. But fortunately, Gary Lewis was not sent to Vietnam. He went to Korea. I can't pronounce that word right. I say it with that deep southern accent. Korea. But when he left the Army, he couldn't regain his momentum. He opened a music shop in 1971 and started giving drumming lessons. And then, of course, later on, he got back into the music, got back into recording and playing with his band, Gary Lewis and the Playboys. I got to talk about Snuff Garrett real quick. Snuff Garrett, he produced all these hits for Gary Lewis and the Playboys. Snuff Garrett took Gary Lewis and the Playboys under his wing. The thing about Gary Lewis and Playboys were, Gary Lewis started out as a drummer. He was just strictly a drummer for the group. And his mom provided money for the equipment. And they were playing gigs at Disneyland when they were spotted by Snuff Garrett. He brought them under his wing. Snuff Garrett encouraged Gary Lewis to improve his drumming skills. He brought in the legendary Buddy Rich to give Gary Lewis some tips, drumming tips. But the most important thing, Snuff Garrett put Gary Lewis on lead vocals. Gary Lewis would be front and center of Gary Lewis and the Playboys. There's one problem. Gary Lewis couldn't sing that well. Well, actually, it wasn't a problem. Snuff Garrett was a production wizard. What he did to get around that, the weakness in Gary Lewis's voice, he would enhance it. He would overdub Gary Lewis's voice, his vocals, and overdub, until he builds up his vocals. And some sources has it that Snuff Garrett also used the voices of professional singers and mixed it in with Gary Lewis's vocals. I tell you what, is that something or what? This song that I'm gonna play for you off of JRD's playlist, "The Loser," this would be probably the first song that didn't make top 40 for Gary Lewis. It went to number 43. By that time, he was in the Army. But boy, it's a lost 45, and I love to share these things with you. Gary Lewis with "The Loser" at number 48.